Hey everyone, it's Natalie, and I just had a few quick updates before we get to the meat of the episode and all the tolerating that we do here on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. So, I hope that you've heard that we have a Patreon, and now we have added a goal to get 25 Patreon members supporting the show. Once that happens, I have some cool perks planned out to release. Spoiler alert, one of them is a pen pal program because I love mail and I love putting stickers on envelopes. So head to the link in the show notes, head to the Patreon, and consider joining us and all the fun we could be having. Also, every Tuesday on Instagram Live at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, we are partnering with Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous to bring you Still Comfy with Jules and Nat. It's a show where we're looking at our comfort TV shows and movies to see if they still make us feel warm and gooey on the inside. So check it out. And I can't wait to see you, whether it's on Patreon, Instagram, or in the DMs. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Hey tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about how misogyny and the patriarchy like to implant ideas in our head and get to us when we're young. Today, I'm joined, when we're just like real impressionable. Today, I'm joined by Julianna, and she is the host of Puffcast, which reflects her love for Harry Potter and Hufflepuff personality. I have to ask you, as a Hufflepuff, have you seen the Puff play? Because it's one of my favorite productions.
Okay, so here's my ranking of Harry Potter content: the books, Puff's the play, Harry Potter movies. We actually interviewed them on my podcast. We had we had Matt Cox, and we also had four of the cast members on.
Oh my gosh, I went and saw it in Cincinnati at this. It's kind of an indie theater. They're called the Think Theater, and I have never laughed harder.
It is the most hilarious piece of Harry Potter content that is out there. It is so well written. I love how scrappy the props are. I love how scrappy the costumes are. And you really got to go check out the Ultra Corp YouTube channel because they do extensions that they did over the pandemic where they did Zoom versions of like beyond the Harry Potter years. And they also did a Fantastic Beasts spoof called Dude, Where Are My Fantastic Friends?
I will need to watch that. At one point, this was my favorite part of the whole production. They have to come back from intermission, and it's a Hufflepuff, so they're all confused about how to get to their marks. And there was a woman who was crawling on the floor, but also picking up, like, debris as she went. Like, she was just going to be helpful while she tried to sneak back to her mark. And I whispered, because she was right at my feet, and I went, "You're doing great, sweetie." And she brought me all of the trash that she had.
Here's some lint.
She's like, "Here you go." And then she like blew me a kiss and floated away. And I was like, that is what a Hufflepuff would do in that moment.
I love that so much. I actually, because they just did an auction for charity with some of the items they have from Puff's Play. So I have the Zach Smith costume from the Halloween party. So I have his hat, his bandana, and his jump rope that he carries around, the bright pink one from the original Broadway, off-Broadway production.
Fun. In true tolerator fashion, we're off topic.
Yes.
Because I don't believe that Hufflepuffs would be misogynist. I don't think that they would be able to compute it.
It would be a challenge. It definitely would be a challenge. We'd be too. I think that the problem is, and this is what I've gathered from being part of a Hufflepuff-led podcast and looking into stuff like that, the main quality that connects all Hufflepuffs is empathy.
Yeah.
It's just like a heightened level of empathy. And I feel like Hufflepuffs would be way too empathetic to be this misogynistic to people because they would be like, but what about their feelings?
Oh,
the feelings are getting hurt.
Why should I weigh in on what that woman wants to do with her body? Exactly, yes. Hufflepuffs, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like if I want to call him Robert Pattinson, but Edward, just because him and Robert Pattinson and Edward are like one and the same at this point. Let's be real here, they're the same being. I feel like with Edward, there's no way he could ever be a Hufflepuff, and if he was, like, this book just like wouldn't exist. It just literally just wouldn't exist. It's just not would be a thing.
So that was your teaser tolerators, because we're going to be talking about Twilight, and I'm going to get to complain for an entire hour about how I was tricked by one Stephanie Meyer.
And I'm going to join in on that because I also was in that category of people who were tricked by Stephanie Meyer. And I'll tell you what, the content that she's put out over the last, what was it? When did Midnight Sun come out? Like 2020? Yeah. Like that has only made things worse. I read that book. I don't know if you read it or not.
No.
When I start a book, I finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I started the book, almost chucked it out the window. Kept reading. I literally almost chucked this book out the window like a minimum of 50 times because I was so bad and so mad at like her. She was clearly trying to dig herself out of the misogynistic hole we're going to talk about.
No.
But only made the hole deeper.
Right, because she put us in the midst of the misogynist head. Like, that's not where I wanted to be. I don't need to know his narrative. I don't need to know his role. I don't need to know any more of his opinions. That is a very similar reading experience that I had with Breaking Dawn. Breaking Dawn is the last one, right?
Yeah.
I was on a family vacation when I was tasked to finish Breaking Dawn because it was the only book that I believe I brought with me.
Oh, for shame.
And I remember like being on a couch surrounded by family, like literally groaning in pain about this book. And my mother being like, why are you finishing it if it's hurting you? And I'm like, because I have to.
Because the first book in the series told me that a pain is okay. And if I die, it's fine.
Right. Because I've gotten this far.
I mean, honestly, yeah. Oh, I was going to say, I'm going to actually have to come out and expose myself, kind of. But I like genuinely, as these books were coming out, like was like kind of in love with them.
Me too.
And then the movie, like I read them like they were my Bible. And then the movies came out, and then it just kind of turned into a parody from there. But
do you know what I think it is? So my sister had already claimed Harry Potter, and we couldn't be like too into the same thing. Like I read all of the Harry Potters, and I feel like I was left with whatever leftover series came after the big one. The only one that I was like right on top of was the Hunger Games. I was like, mine. Mm-hmm. My sister read all of the Harry Potter books, made it her entire personality for several years. And then this vampire book came about, and my mother had also turned me into an Anne Rice fan. So I was like, oh, teenage vampires who are age appropriate for me to flirt with.
Me likey. I like sparkly things.
Just like it. And like the cover was all intense with that apple.
Oh my god, that cover is so like 2000s, early 2000s, late 2000s emo. Like I am like dying. My Chemical Romance, my Fall Out Boy self, my Green Day personality is just like, oh my god, wow.
Right.
Look at that emo cover right there.
With Twilight, it was like, I deserve an obsession too. So if my sister is going to be obsessed with Harry Potter, I've got vampires and it'll be fine.
Yep. I love that for you.
Thank you. Breaking Dawn read like she took every Tumblr post that had ever been hashtag Twilight and she crafted a novel out of it.
Yeah, I remember because I wasn't really active on Tumblr at that time, but even in the moment as a teenager reading it, it felt like fan service. Yeah. Like it literally felt like she was like, oh, you want this? Let me write it here for it. Oh, you wanted that too? Oh, okay. Sounds good. I'll just put all these things into one little tiny, nice, neat package. And well, not nice and neat, but like this package.
Like she gathered all of us via the internet and was like, what are your hopes and dreams for this series to end? Because I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, she's like, I'm done writing. I ran out of ideas. Someone help me. You're not going to get any pay for this. You're not going to get any residuals. You're not going to get anything for this. Just me. But you tell me what to write, my friends.
And I will do it.
Yeah. And we all very, very enthusiastically said, give us all these things.
And we signed on. And that's on us, I guess, in a little bit.
Kind of. I mean, we were in our teens too.
We were children, but
yeah.
So I can't remember exactly where I was when Twilight came out, but I have to imagine it was somewhere between sophomore and junior year of high school for me.
What year did it come out? Do you know the first book?
I have no idea.
Twilight came out in 2005.
So yes, I graduated 2007. So it was probably around my junior year of high school, which now makes me believe that like I was too old to get baited by this series.
I mean, there are people who I remember, because when this came out, that would put me in middle school, because I graduated high school in 2011.
Okay.
So I would have been like in like 6th or 7th grade, which mentally fully checks out from what I remember. But I remember people's moms were reading this.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I remember my best friend's mom was reading this along with us. I'm pretty sure my mom read it too. Like,
I think my mom at least read the first one. It's like when moms got really into Justin Bieber and also wanted to feel him up at concerts. And he'd be like, sometimes like I'm hugging a 12-year-old and their 40-ish-year-old mother is grabbing my ass in the photo. And I don't know what to do with that. Yeah.
That was a wild time.
That was a wild time.
Wow.
So I didn't date in high school. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. So
well, join the club, me neither. So we're in the same club there.
So I honestly did not have any knowledge on how relationships should go or how a man should talk to me.
Yeah, same.
So when Edward Cullen likened her to his own brand of heroin, I was like, that's so sexy.
You're like, I want this for myself. This is who I want as a person to be my forever human. Like, I want Edward Cullen.
Right.
Now, please.
And because if you think about it, when we're children, love just literally feels like a rush of adrenaline. So you're like, yeah, I want someone to be addicted to the rush of adrenaline I give them by walking into the room. Edward gets it. He's fucking hot.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, you think about any kind of movie that you've ever watched growing up, there's like all this sexual tension that they build up, and then they have that kiss at the end, and it's like,
yeah,
they like open it. It is that rush moment that we're being delivered in these books. And I think one of the things that kind of makes it even more enticing is the fact that you, as a female identifying person in like Bella's kind of age range, are reading it as her. Yeah. And from what I've gathered talking to other people in my own research, like Stephanie Meyer kind of wrote Bella as just vanilla enough as a character that you could kind of wear her as a skin and kind of insert yourself into there, which is one of the things that separates her book from like all those other vampire books that were out there. Like she had just enough personality where there was something happening, but then just little enough where you could be like, this is me. I'm wearing the Bella skin inside this book.
Bella is such a passive character in her own love story that for half of the second book, she's just laying down in the woods.
Yep. Again, very boring, like not like a skin of a character. She's a skin of a character. So like you insert yourself and like think like, what would I be thinking?
Right.
At this time, what would I be doing? Blah, 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 blah. Because she's got nothing going on in her head.
At all.
So you insert yourself.
We know that she doesn't like the rain in Forks and that she trips a lot and that her dad is trying very hard to connect with her, but she is a shell of a human. So what would you connect to?
I think what she really needs is a therapist and maybe some medication, give or take how the therapy goes.
Yeah. I mean, she was like violently assaulted in her mother's dance studio. So like maybe at that point, her mother could have stepped in and been like, hey, why don't you come on back with me and my new boo and we get you a medical and mental health professional.
Yeah. Oh my God. That whole ending scene in the first movie / book, because it's the same in both essentially. It's just, it's not the actual fight scene that happens between, I believe it's James is the vampire who's part of that, and Bella and Edward and the rest of the Cullens and everything. It's the scene afterwards when she's in the hospital and she wakes up and he's like, you almost died. She's like, I would die for you. Right. I don't care. It's such a manipulative conversation that he has with her, being like, it was your fault that all this happened. It's your fault you almost died. It's your fault you did all these things. I'm only trying to protect you. I know what's best for you. Don't try going to kill yourself. Okay, friend?
I told you that I was an apex predator and I hung out with other apex predators and you didn't listen. And then they lie to her mom about what happens.
Yeah.
And the mom just, all right, you fell, a mirror fell on you at my studio that you were at after hours. Okay.
That's decimated now. A mirror that fell in my studio that is on fire.
Okay.
What could have happened? Question mark.
That isn't even the first time that Edward Cullen gaslights her, because the first time
oh god, no, this starts from the very beginning. There is quite a bit of gaslighting starting from like the exact second they like even see each other.
Their first interaction is him stopping that car with the palm of his hand, and the car bends in on itself.
And so he's like, nothing to see here. You didn't see anything. I'm a normal person.
To hit her, and she's like confused. And then she goes to lunch or class or whatever, and she goes up to him and she's like, you smashed that car so it couldn't hit me. He's like, no, I didn't. And she's like, but I saw the metal bend in. And he's like, you must be in shock. It's the same thing when he's always saving her from being assaulted, even though he himself is an assault. And Outlander does that too. Jamie Fraser isn't an assault, but Claire is constantly getting assaulted. So there's drama in the series, and I'm like, could we just have a moment? Could we just have coffee? I don't understand. But Edward is constantly trying to save Bella and also stay away from Bella. So that's also a manipulative point, because he's actively making her safe while also telling her that he is the most dangerous person to hang out with. Then let me get hit by cars. I don't know. Be nowhere near me.
He is. It's such an awful thing too, because he just gaslights. I feel like if he didn't tell her that she was in danger all the time, like she wouldn't be thinking of it as much. And it's just, he's so creepy about the way creepy. Oh my god, like even the scene in the middle, towards the middle / end of the books, I think it's more in the middle, but where she realizes he's a vampire and realizes that he's been watching over her every night.
Yeah.
And she's like, how long have you been watching over me? Like 4 months. It's like, oh my god, that's not okay.
Right. And I think Edward Cullen...
Consent.
Yeah. Because now he's the Phantom of the Opera. He's just like behind glass, making sure that you're breathing.
She is literally like a toy to him. Like she is legitimately like a toy. He's like like a fascinating toy that he just can't figure her out, so he has to keep her around. He just likes to like look at her, and it's just so it's so disgusting the way that he speaks to her. I really hate it.
And then there's the fact that through every moment of their relationship, so like first he's just saving her a couple of times and she's like, date me, and he's like, no, I'm dangerous.
And she's like, I don't care. And we're like, what is wrong with you, Bella?
So then it escalates and they are dating. So she's like, make me a vampire. And he's still like, no, I won't. And he's always keeping the next thing that she wants, just like it's a cat with a ribbon. Like, come on, Bella, jump for it. You want to be a vampire?
Prove it to me. Come on. What? You can't do that? Oh, wait, you almost died? Oh, oops, sorry. It's just, oh my god, the relation. I really like, I want to kick 17, 16, 15, 14-year-old Julianna like right in the face, because this is, I wanted an Edward so bad when I was a teenager. And I think a lot of that too comes down to the point like that you talked about too. Like, I didn't date in high school,
right? And
I have two parents who are still together, but in my opinion shouldn't be, because they fight all the time.
Yeah.
And their relationship is nothing to be idealized in any capacity. But that was the only like real like example of a relationship that I had, a relationship where people yell at each other all the time and they fight with each other all the time. And there's some kind of like negative dynamic happening. And then I jump into this where there's still like an essence of that, right? But there's also this like passion element that I've never seen this before, like, because my parents just don't have that. Obviously, like, it's not the most common thing in like your day-to-day middle school relationships either, because like let's face it, it's middle school. So I see this kind of like thing that I want, and I'm like, I see the thing that I want more than I see the abusiveness of the relationship, because I think I'm just used to seeing the abusiveness of the relationship within relationships, and then I'm like, that's what I want.
Well, and also because we never get Edward's narrative until Midnight Sun decades later. None of us wanted it.
Oh, you don't need to read it.
No.
It's not good. It's bad. It only makes his misogyny sound worse. And he's like, I'm only doing it to protect her. I love the way that her chest goes up and down when I watch her. She doesn't know I'm here, but it's okay. I'm in the shadows. I'm like, no. It's really no.
It's not okay.
He's like, I broke into her room last night. I'm like, yeah, we don't do that, friend. Like, that's not a date. That does not count.
So because we only have Bella, who, again, we're all wearing like a skin because she's a non-person. She's just like literally a no one. Yeah. I can't remember anything about her before the Cullens.
Yeah, no.
And we don't know what's going on in Edward's head. I continuously told myself, how hot is it that he's like denying himself the happiness of being with her to keep her safe?
I remember telling myself that too. I was like, he's sacrificing things. And then especially going back and reading Midnight Sun, I'm like, this guy is so full of himself that he's like, I'm the best thing that ever landed on this planet. Me staying away from her is hurting her because she's missing out on such a wonderful like vampire. Like I'm a gift to this world. She should be just like devastated that she can't be around me. It's like, dude, like, why like, great, you're sparkly.
And I don't know if you watch a lot of made for TV movies or Pretty Little Liars, but the Edward Bella dynamic mirrors the I'm your teacher and I shouldn't but I want to dynamic that we were sold a lot as kids.
We were sold that dynamic a lot as kids. Wow, now that I think about it, you're right. Like, that was a really common trope that they utilized a lot. I can say that like most of the TV shows I've watched recently, I don't remember that being like a thing.
No. Or if it is a thing, it explodes quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I think Riverdale tried to make it a thing and that lady had to move and then I think she was murdered. So
yeah, so not a thing anymore then.
Right.
That's wild.
So you kind of know that he's going. And again, we were children, so we didn't understand the power dynamics that can happen in imbalanced relationships. So he's 400 years old.
Yes. Yeah.
And she has all of the same raging hormones that I did when I was 16. And I thought that it was so beautiful. And again, I was the girl who, when I read Tuck Everlasting in middle school, I was like, I'd totally drink from that stream and just live forever with Tuck.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was definitely the person in high school and middle school because I like never dated because one, I was just like an awkward nerd. Like, let's be real here, and no one really was ever super interested in that. Like, if someone showed like some kind of interest in me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I would have like jumped off a plane or done whatever for this person because they showed some kind of interest in me. And my friends, that's not the way to be.
That's not the way to be. So there's this constant power dynamic where he's lived multiple lifetimes. And truly, I think if she had like walked away from him or died or any of it, he would have been okay.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But he takes like a 2-month hiatus and she sleeps in I can picture the exact shot from the movie of her in the fetal position, just like rubbing dirt in the woods.
I think, it's a toxic relationship when you've been with the person like a week or two and you're already like, my life is nothing without them. Like, that is called codependency and it's not a good thing.
And we were sold codependency as the height of romance at every twist or turn.
Oh my God.
Edward also escalates from a creepy guy who has control issues to a literal abusive boyfriend because what I saw the first movie in theaters. I laughed my ass off when he gagged at her when the fan hit.
Oh, I love that. That's a great scene.
And I didn't stop laughing. I then walked away from all of the movies. I was like, this is a nope for me. I feel had. But one stormy night at my parents' house, I was home from college. I was like, I'll watch New Moon. I got this. Like, I'm up. Who cares? I'll make fun of it.
Yeah.
I got to the point where he like cuts out a major part of her car so she can't go anywhere. And it's like, you're away and I have to stay at Charlie's house because you say so.
Yeah. Oh no, he gets to be there's some scenes like that where he's like, just like fully being like, you can't do these things. I will physically stop you. I am more powerful than you. So if you try, I will overpower you and you must stay here and do X, Y, and Z. And I've also enlisted my family members to make sure that my wills are carried through with. Thank you very much. It's just like, it's not good. Like, that's not a good example for someone to be following. It's not a good example to give female or male seeking people examples as to how to conduct a relationship.
Right, because now I'm an adult who, on the very end tail of a relationship, when I know that this has run its course and we're no longer healthy people, I will say in my head, there's always something worth fighting for, because that's what we were sold. That like, you're supposed to be fighting for this, because then you get like a 4-book deal and a 5-movie set.
I mean, I'm still waiting on my second book, so let's be real here.
Right. And so in the back of my head, I'm constantly telling myself relationships are supposed to be work. There is supposed to be like something that they withhold from you that you try and like pedal around to go and get. And it's like, it's not only Twilight, but Twilight became such a huge phenomenon.
Yeah, it's such a good example of it, I'd say.
That Stephenie Meyer, you are irresponsible.
Honestly, she is. I mean, and again, you haven't read Midnight Sun, but she definitely was really trying to course correct, but like because she dug herself into such a big hole and didn't like, she couldn't even do it. And she didn't even come out and say like, hey, these are the things that are wrong with it. I couldn't even correct these because of X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. She literally just puts the book out and it's fucking awful. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's just unacceptable.
It's also, so Twilight for me has now also become a symbol of how, because we're so weird about sexuality in this country, authors now take all of their like hidden desires and then make them media for us to consume like it's normalcy. So Stephenie Meyer grew up in a very conservative religious household and therefore crafted this like Adonis sparkling vampire man who then you're just lusting for 4 books. Even when you've got him, he still holds you at such a distance that you're always lusting for more.
Yeah. He's so inaccessible, mentally and physically and emotionally inaccessible in every capacity of the word. He never lets his guard down. And like, I feel like that's one of the trademark ways that you know you're in an abusive relationship. If you never feel like you see the actual person that you're with fully, that's a problem. Get out of that relationship, friends. If you are in one like that, please and thank you.
I had a relationship where it was like when you are a time traveler and you accidentally rewrite one of your days, so your brain, so then they tell you in all of these sci-fi time traveling books that your brain can't make the 2 realities merge. And that's what the relationship felt like, because I'd be with him and it would be hot and it would be passionate or whatever, and he'd say all these things I'd want to hear, and then he'd leave the room and other things would start clicking in my head, but it was like a divergence of 2 different stories. And it's like, that's who Edward Cullen is. He's just like literally feeding you like, you should stay away from me, I'm dangerous, this, that, and the other. But then he's like, I would give anything to bite you once. And then you're like, well, that's kind of hot.
Yeah. It's like that one hot thing erases all of the terrible things that he said to you and all the terrible ways that he's treated you. It's kind of like the thing where, so I run marathons, and marathons, even if you've done it a million times, it's painful. It's hella painful every single time, because your body is just not meant to run that long in one period of time. So anyone who tells you they had an easy marathon, that means like, relatively speaking, compared to other marathons, there was less pain.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you finish, you're like, that was so fun. I had such a great time. And you remember like that one thing in the middle that was like really fun. You remember getting your medal at the end. You completely erase all of the pain from your brain. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening here. She gets like 1 or 2 little like nice moments, and then the rest of the pain and the trauma, she's like, oh, but it was all great.
Yeah, I got to like fuck him on that bed in the cabin and we broke the bed. That was fun. That was fun.
It was so fun. And then he sucks the blood out of my body and almost didn't let me live. And that was a really fun time too.
That was a good time. What a great honeymoon.
I had a baby like claw the way out of my stomach. Also a good time.
The birth.
That was disgusting. I think that's one of the things that scarred me the most from these books, honestly.
The birth. And then that leads us to the next.
Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob. We got to talk about Jacob.
Yeah, I think we got to talk about Jacob too.
This is Natalie Katona, host of the podcast To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. Are you a business owner that would like to start advertising on podcasts and want to work one-on-one with the podcast host to craft the perfect message for your business on an episode? Well, you're in luck. I'm a one-woman operation, and I have ad space open on future episodes of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. If you are interested in learning more about booking an ad with our show, please email me at menI'veToleratedBefore@gmail.com. Thanks, and I can't wait for our future collaborations. When I told my best friend from high school that I was doing this episode, she was like, well, how bad was Twilight? And I talked about the car and the gaslighting and the Jacob of it all. And she's like, you know, when you say it all in one consecutive sentence, you're like, maybe that book did fuck me up. And I'm like, yes.
Yes, it did. It collectively fucked up a lot of people. Like, it's a shared experience that we all have now.
Because Jacob somehow, even though Bella is, for the most part, in the series not having sex, so none of her eggs are fertilized. And yet somehow Jacob has imprinted on one of them.
Yeah, I genuinely do not know why exactly Stephenie Meyer made that choice, except for the fact that she knew fans were going to be mad if Jacob didn't end up with someone in the end. That's my only best guess at that. But that was not the way to solve the problem.
So she chose the baby.
Yeah, that was not the way to solve the problem.
She chose the baby.
She had a full cast of characters that she could have chosen from. We could have made up a new character, like Himpty Dimpty, who is the cousin of Humpty Dumpty, and she could have come and been Jacob's love interest, and wow, he could have married an egg. That would have been better than a baby.
So, and what bothers me now as an adult, like, number one, it's creepy. It is creepy for your grown man friend to come to you on the day after you have had a demon child rip itself out of you.
I don't even think it was a full 24 hours after
she
gave birth to it's like, he's like, yeah, oh yeah, by the way, that's my soulmate.
Right.
The one that just destroyed your body. You know that one. You remember that? You remember that? You probably forgot. But do you remember that? She's my soulmate. So
she's my soulmate. It's so
I'm gonna have sex with that when it gets old enough. So
as
just
soon as it's 18, just like Edward did with you.
Yeah, just hang on to her for like 18 years, and I'll come back, and I promise I'll use the condom.
Also, and the way that they justified like Jacob still getting to be around the baby, even though he's laid like sex claim onto the baby, is he goes, don't worry, for the first like 18 to 20 years of her life, I'll just be like the fun uncle. That's weird. That's a weird metaphor. Your fun uncle doesn't then get to have sex with you and marry you.
No, they don't. No. That did not make the situation any better.
At all.
No, thank you.
He's like, I'll just be like the babysitter. No, you will not,
sir. There would be a restraining order on this man's ass as soon as he opened his mouth in this. I would be like, police, someone call 911. And or have Edward like rip him to shreds. I'd be like, he's on our property. You rip this werewolf to shreds. He just told me he's gonna have sex with my 1 day-year-old.
My 1 day-year-old.
Yeah.
And he keeps side-eyeing her real weird.
Yeah.
And I'm over it.
Yeah, like I've only had this new baby for less than a day, and I'm not she's not gonna be needing birth control quite yet. Please and thank you.
I think what pisses me off about it is like Jacob couldn't have just been a scorned love interest, or they couldn't have had this like really beautiful moment where he's like, you know what, you and Edward,
yeah, they could have just left it there,
belong together, and I will always be your friend. No, they had to justify Jacob still remaining in her life by still getting like literally a part of her.
It's not even like I could see a little bit more justification for that choice. If she was going to continue the books forward past that point and was going to play out a storyline with everything, I still wouldn't like it, but I could see a little bit more of the justification there. But the books end there. There are not further books. There's no need to involve Jacob in her story going forward. You don't need him at all. He can leave. Bye.
He can just go. Anne Rice pulls some weird fucked up shit in her books, but I always feel like she's just like very like, you know what you're getting into. She's very clear, like, here comes a fucked up thing, and then her characters go, this is a fucked up thing that I'm doing.
Yeah, they check themselves.
Not Stephenie Meyer. Stephenie Meyer is like, Jacob deserves love too, even if it's a baby.
I mean, I could go fuck a rock. Does that work? Does that also like rocks, trees, sheep, goats,
right?
Anything. I can deserve love too. Thank you very much. And like, I mean, I guess if rock fucking is for you, then I guess it is, but it's not for me, and it's not what I'm gonna write about in my book. So
the baby. She was a baby.
That's
also
so disgusting.
Another problematic relationship that I now have an issue with is Jasper and Alice, because Alice has to be his like babysitter caretaker.
Yeah, that's such a weird that relationship has always just sat really weirdly with me. I remember finding out that they were dating, and then like I think we learned a little bit more about them first before we figured out that they were like quote unquote dating soulmate people. They don't feel like it. They feel like they should be siblings. They feel like if anything they should be siblings, because then I could justify her caring for him like a babysitter, because like, oh yeah, this is my brother, he's kind of screwed up, he does these things, but I'm a loving caring sister, so I'm taking care of him.
Right. He has I think they're like, he has a migraine disorder, that's why he always looks so tense.
Yeah.
But really, it's because he'd love to murder this entire cafeteria full of people. And we still let him go to high school because he deserves it.
Yeah, like, why do they have to go to high school? I mean, I don't think anyone's coming after them. Like, if the school board comes after them, why don't they just be like, well, we're homeschooling our kids?
Right. Why would any vampire choose to still live a, like, normal day-to-day 9 to 5? Because that's what...
Or be a high schooler. Right. Why?
Like, you're a vampire.
I mean, that's only one step above choosing to go back to middle school, and that's like the ultimate form of torture.
And so, like, the Alice thing, for one thing, all of the Cullen children were supposed to be siblings, and yet an entire high school knew that all of those siblings were fucking one another.
Yeah, and they all look so different too, and it's just like, okay, maybe they're all adopted. But even if they're all adopted, you don't like. I still don't like the dynamic of them like fucking their adopted siblings. That just seems like wrong.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
When was the moment for you when like you woke up out of the Edward cloud and went, "Oh, I got sold a bad ride"?
I feel like when I like maybe at like the third or fourth movie, I think. That was kind of where I was like, oh yeah, no, like this is just like not okay. And I feel like it's been more of like a gradual process over the last like 10 years to kind of attain that full level of like, yeah, this was really really fucked up. And I think rereading them and seeing parts of the movies and just having them be part of the general zeitgeist currently, I've seen so many things, and like now I've read Midnight Sun and all the other stuff that's happened, I'm just like, it's awful. It's terrible.
It was such a different thing to read them, because then you can picture it however you want. And then to watch it all play out, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I think it was partially the movies that definitely hit it home for me. Because that was when I started to be like, oh, this is like funny. Like these movies are like funny. Like they are so they take them so seriously, but they're so campy that it's ridiculous. I mean, I have to go back and rewatch at least one of these movies because I haven't seen them for a hot minute, and I feel like I'm just gonna die laughing because I mean I did in the theaters too. When me and my friends, we would specifically go to the movie theaters like to watch it as a comedy.
No, my friend that I was with at the first one, when I started laughing at the gagging, because it was so ridiculously overdone. Like the fan wafts her hair forward and then he throws up 3 times in his mouth.
But my question is, what does he throw up? Because they don't put any like he what blood? Do they pee blood? That's my other question too. Do they just like pee blood out?
I don't know.
How does that work?
I don't know how vampire biology works. Wild.
Absolute wild.
So he throws up 3 times in his mouth and I lose control. I cannot stop laughing. And my friend was pissed because she had waited her entire life to like rub one out for Rob Pattinson being Edward Cullen. And I was ruining it. And I was embarrassing about it. I was like,
just laughing the whole time. You were just like, but look at it. Look at
it.
Look at this man.
Look at it. Like, I will admit when I was baited, and boy, did I get baited. And honestly, this just means that we should be cooler as a society with just normal, like, just talking about sexuality in general instead of repressing all of that, making a sparkly Adonis, and then chugging that out to young girls who are like, you know what men really love you? The ones that tell you what to do.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And I think you're right too, because this just played into such a fantasy, and like that time frame was definitely, no one was talking about sex, and like you had to, that was kind of the era of 50 Shades of Grey that kind of fell into that same thing, where people were like, oh, you have to read 50 Shades of Grey. Everyone's reading 50 Shades of Grey, but they wouldn't tell you exactly what it was about. Right. And we couldn't just have like an honest conversation about like, yeah, it's this guy who's like kind of into violent sexual acts, and he has a room where he has props and things like that, and it's not a good thing to do, but it's something that people do, so we should speak about that.
Well, and then it's the whole problem with 50 Shades of Grey, which there was a rumor that was built upon a fan fiction moment of Twilight. Like somehow, because we had Twilight,
would not doubt it.
We have 50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
And the problem with 50 Shades of Grey is it was clearly written by a woman. I think it's a woman written series who clearly maybe wanted to explore BDSM, but also felt so much shame about it. She wrote an entire series of books that lied to us about what BDSM is supposed to be. So now all of us people who have never gotten to talk about sex a day in our lives openly are like, okay, yeah, BDSM, you have to have a contract. He's allowed to hit you with whatever he wants at the restaurant, and because it's in the contract. It's like, no, there's so much more boundary setting than that.
No, and like you don't just sign a contract. It's a ongoing verbal document that is happening right there. It's not a one time you sign this contract, so you're signed into all these things. You can say no. It's a thing you can do, my friends.
Yeah, you can even revisit the terms of that contract that you no longer like anymore. There's also the shitty part about 50 Shades of Grey is how he thinks about her differently the moment he wifeys her, and I think that happens in Twilight too.
Oh yeah, I was listening to some podcasts this morning to get other people's hot takes on some of the Twilight stuff. And yeah, they definitely were saying that too. They're like, yeah, there's a very distinct moment between when he gets married and when he's not married, and he starts actually treating her more like a human once they're married. But the only difference is that they're married. Like nothing else in the relationship has changed, which is, I think that's such a like old mindset where it's like, and our whole culture is set up for it too, because we have this big ceremony, we have all these things that happen around it, and people are like, yeah, your life is so different after you get married. It's like, in an ideal world, your life should be the same.
Right.
Like you're literally you're signing a document to say, I can see this person in the hospital when they're dying. I can share healthcare with this person. I can share assets with this person. And I like legally am bonded to them just in a legal sense. That is all. I'm sure there's nothing in an actual marriage certificate. I'm not married, but I doubt the legalities, I don't think say anything about love, I'm sure, because it's a legal document that you're just signing and they can't quantify that in a courtroom. So I would say that, yeah, it in my current, and not when I was a teenager, but in my current ideal world, like if I'm dating someone, like we're living together already. We have all these things. Like our wedding is just like a big party, and then we just keep doing whatever we were doing. It's just like a fun party to have, to say like, oh hey, like we're just saying that this is going to be a thing. So just it's just a thing, and yeah, we'll have a party, and then that'll be good, and then we'll just go back to the way it was, and the relationship between the two of us isn't really going to change.
And then the other old idea is, well, now that they're married, they have to have a baby. So they have to have sex.
Yes, right away.
Before she's a vampire.
Yep.
So then that way somehow.
And risk her life.
They make a baby.
Yep.
But we're going to then make her a vampire. So then the birth is horrific and traumatic for us all.
And so that way she can withstand the baby trying to escape out of her stomach, because vampire babies shouldn't exist according to the biology that they have established in this book series. Yeah. And yet we have one.
And now we're going to have a war about the vampire baby that we have, because it was also, and I think this is a common theme in most vampire literature, like it is literally against vampire doctrine or vampire law to create vampire children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's a really, really common trope within like vampire-esque or vampire including YA novels or just fantasy novels in general. And you know what? Spoiler alert. Someone always breaks that rule in these books.
Because as a woman, after you've married your abusive boyfriend,
I'm like, how can I put myself into more pain and torture and carry a child of a man that I don't like, but I've been gaslit into thinking I love? Wow, I think I'd love to torture myself some more. Wouldn't that be fun?
Right. Because I think there should be two of us in this toxic situation.
I'd love to bring a small child into this and really let them have a traumatic experience too. Wouldn't it be great if we were poor and we couldn't pay for the bills? But then he kept telling me I was the reason for that. And then we could have this little child and we could just both be fully mentally incapacitated for the rest of our lives. What fun that would be.
What fun.
Yeah.
I really need the young adult authors out there to really just start to think about the relationships that you're presented with, because you might just think that you're like writing some horny vampire fiction, but then there are consequences. Like our minds are impressionable when they're just drenched in hormones.
Yeah. Well, and these books specifically were targeted towards like teens in when they came out. So it's not like she's like, oh, I wrote an adult book and it kind of like hit with the teens and I wasn't thinking that's what was going to happen. That there's no excuse. It literally went to the YA novel shelf at Barnes and Noble, straight to it. The cover shouts teenager in the aughts, and there's no way. And
then it spawned all of these other like toxic fantasy series.
Just so many white people too. Just so many like pale white people. And I was like, every show I feel like I watch is just like an overly like an undersaturated like white people terribleness. And I was like, oh my god, what are we watching? Like, why am I watching this? Just like, because everyone sees something that's big and they try and copy it. It's just, let's not do that either.
In Vampire Diaries, she got to date not one but two toxic vampires, and they were brothers.
Wow. Upgrade.
That
sounds great.
I don't know if you feel this way, but as I've reached further and further into being part of the quote unquote media, it's like there has to be some sort of responsibility that I have towards my audience and what they are inconsequentially or unwillingly or unwittingly to me learning from me. Like, because people listen to podcasts and then we love to be like, they're the expert in psychotherapy. And you're like, no, they are a lady who's been to psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And Stephanie Meyer never had to own the fact that she sold domestic abuse as a teen rom-com, and we all bought in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too was at that point we were all still kind of sipping the tea of that this is a good relationship to model, and it was kind of pre women's rights being like at the forefront and like pre Me Too and pre just outwardly talking about the fact that these things were not okay, and like outwardly talking about sexuality and outwardly talking about like gender identity and things like that. And she was also right on the precipice of when social media was becoming like a big deal and like cancel culture wasn't a thing. And she probably, I think at that point, she probably like only had like a website and maybe a Facebook page. Yeah. And so I feel like to her, she probably felt like she wasn't reaching as many people as she actually physically was because she didn't get to have any kind of contact or feedback with them. Whereas now, if you're an author and you have like you're to her level, you constantly have people like subtweeting you and tagging you on Instagram posts and tagging you in Facebook. Like there's a constant stream of like some kind of interaction with someone who's in your fan base. And I feel like that kind of hits home a lot harder than like getting emails that someone else is probably reading for her and sorting out a couple times a day. And I just feel like, yeah, there wasn't that level of accountability out there for what she did to us. Stephenie Meyer, I'm suing you.
Right.
I'm just kidding. I don't have.
I deserve compensation.
Honestly, if they ever do a Twilight, like a board of sexual liberation versus Stephenie Meyer case at the Supreme Court, I'm totally gonna be with the board of sexual liberation.
I deserve compensation because I trusted you and I was let down. And that's why I'm so confused as to why during quarantine, Gen Z was like, so we found this Twilight movie that you all seem to like, and we didn't go put it away. It'll only make this worse.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Because there's been a Twilight renaissance, and I've actually been listening to Ashley Green, who played Alice. She has a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to like listen to someone who was part of the movie specifically and just hear about this like Twilight renaissance that's been happening, like in their perspective too. And yeah, like did Gen Zers think that this is just so campy and satirish that it's funny? Is like that's the only excuse I can give them, is that they are just like it's so campy that they're like, this is hilariously dumb.
Yeah.
And
I hope so. That's what TikTok has led me to believe.
I hope so. I mean, to their credit, it is so campy and satirishly dumb that it fully warrants that. Like this movie, like literally is like just a panel of memes. It literally is just like meme after meme after meme after meme after meme.
But the book was written so seriously, and we constantly have to live with that paradox.
It is so bizarre too, because the movies are just so like terrible that they're a comedy, and the books are you're right, are very seriously and intently written.
Yeah.
And just an aura that the movies do not put out in any format of the word.
We are rounding up the hour. So on To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, we have 2 traditions to close out the show. We have to reflect on the lesson that we've learned today and with our experience of Twilight.
Oh no.
And then we have to manifest and put back positive energy into the collective. So we know that moving forward, maybe things will get a little bit better.
Yeah. I would say from this, I learned that this relationship is just as misogynistic and controlling and terrible as I thought it was, along with the other relationships that are inside of Twilight, besides Edward and Bella.
I'm happy to affirm you. Like, you get to go to bed tonight going, yes, I am right.
Oh, good. That's a nice thing for me.
I think my biggest lesson that I've learned is that there is a responsibility between author and audience. And you kind of do have to be at a point where you have to be so okay with the content that you are producing that you've thought through what the repercussions would be if a young girl or a young man or a young human gets to it and goes, this is romance. And you can't just look at your cash cow and just be like, and now I will lead a lot of people into abusive relationships and call it drama.
Drama. Well, I would like to affirm you right back, because I definitely stand behind that. And just as a side note, as someone who's coming from mostly the Harry Potter world and has a trash fire bitch of a human as the author.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of lack of responsibility on her end. And we're, as a Harry Potter podcaster, we're kind of used to being like, we do not stand with this person.
Right.
They need to be held accountable for their actions. We will call them out on it. The receipts will be read.
Yeah. So, Yes, because while Stephenie Meyer kind of got to fade into it, like no one ever knowing what she looked like anymore, the other
Yeah.
one, the other one just likes to take to Twitter and make us angry because she felt something in the middle of the night.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a really big problem just because, like, as a very brief side note, like the community that is Harry Potter,
Mhm.
like the actual people who are part of it are so positive and
Yeah.
lovely and wonderful and just fantastic. And then we get people who are like outsiders who only see like the movie content and her. And like
Mhm.
she's like they assume that she is our beacon. And like literally we want nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Literally we want to smash her into the ground. And it's just so obnoxious that the people outside of that very specific sphere, all they see is her
Yeah.
radiating her hate, and it's awful.
God. Go
Yeah.
away, JK.
I
Go
mean, honestly,
away.
if she just like jumped off the edge of their planet, no one would care.
No one.
There would be a pretty actually big party within the Harry Potter
Yeah.
community if she just like disappeared forever. I'm not going to wish
More
death upon anyone, but like I'm just going to say disappeared forever.
more Niffler, less JK.
Did you see Fantastic Beasts?
I did. I have the cooperative board game.
Oh my gosh, I have to play that. Oh my
Yeah.
god, I love it. I genuinely, me and my friend, me and my co-host and my best friend Mel, we just did our Secrets of Dumbledore review, and we talked
Mhm.
for 4 hours, and then we talked for another 2.5, and
So
yeah.
someone asked me if I was going to go see The Secrets of Dumbledore, and I was like, I don't know, because like the first Fantastic Beasts movie, I was all in because it was just like an awkward ginger carrying around a zoo in his briefcase, and like
The
we
second
got
one fucked
to
it up.
hang out with the Fantastic Beast. I go, and then the second one got real serious, and I was like, where are my beasts?
I will say that they come back in the third movie, and
Okay.
there's the beasts actually carry the storyline away along in a very meaningful way.
Thank goodness, because I
So
miss them. How dare you introduce me to the Niffler just to like make him obsolete for an entire movie?
or Antonio the Chupacabra, who's at the beginning, who just gets thrown out of the window by Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
It's like, thank you, Anthony. It's like Antonio, and he's like, just chucks. I'm like, the baby,
The
the baby just
baby.
out the window. Where did the baby go?
For
It's so
my
mean.
for my positivity that I'm going to put back out into the universe, I
Yes.
manifest that there are no more characters written like Bella Swan, because I believe that the way that she was written with no personality, literally so bland that you can just impose your face right onto her, was the most irresponsible part of the
Yeah.
Twilight
Yeah.
series.
No, I stand behind you on that one 100%. And I think my what I'm going to put out into the world is my hope that all the Gen Zers and the younger kids who are watching this now are watching it purely out of comedy, and they're taking in this is an example of not to have how to have a relationship, and they're seeing this and being like, this is what I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I want something else that's consensual and caring and loving, and not what's being shown here, because being shown here specifically in the movies too, it's very comical and very terrible.
Yes, it's
That's what
very
I hope.
terrible. You shouldn't want to be anyone's spider monkey.
Don't climb onto anyone's backs unless you actually know them too, especially if they tell you like, I'm dangerous, Bella, and you're like, I don't care. It's like, don't say you don't care when someone tells you they're dangerous. It's just not. It's not the move. It's
It's
not
not
the
a
thing
good
to
look.
do. Yeah, no, not at all.
Juliana, thank you so much for spending this very cathartic hour with me talking about Twilight.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, I love to talk shit about Twilight any
Mhm.
chance that I can. My best friend and co-host Mel, she's like, I was like, Mel, guess what I'm talking about? She's like, don't tell me. I'm like, Twilight. She's like, I don't want anything to do with that. I was like,
Please let the listeners know where they can find you and all of your grandness.
Yeah, so if you like my dulcet tones, you may find me over on any place where pods are cast at Puffcast, which is PUFFCAST, because it's run by two Hufflepuffs and it's about Harry Potter. We coin it as your Harry Potter happy place. So we are pretty much just looking to make a kind, friendly space so you can talk like Harry Potter and related things. And we pretty much just want to be your friend. So if you'd like friends, we'd like to have you. And just know that once you become our friend, you cannot go back. We accept only applications, no
resignations.
Yeah. So we're looking for Harry Potter friends, and the other place that you can find me is at Into the Fold podcast, and that is a book club style podcast that we are reading the Grishaverse books, which if you have seen the Shadow and Bone Netflix show, it's the book series that is based off of. And so we are going chapter by chapter with my other best friend Jeff, and we are reading through each chapter and having a book club style discussion, and we love having our listeners involved too. So if you're looking to pick up a new YA book that's like a fantasy book, or you've read these series before, there are like 8 books in the series. We're only halfway through book 2. So you definitely could easily join in and pick up reading a new book with some friends. I mean, what's better than that?
I didn't know that that's what Grishaverse was the Shadow and Bone.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you liked the show, you totally have to, regardless if you listen to my podcast or not, go and read those books because they're so well worth your time. They're so good. You'll love when you get to the middle. The middle 2 are the best, Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. Those are the 2 best ones. Right. So very high, obviously I'm doing a podcast on it. I highly recommend these books. Plus the author, Leigh Bardugo, is the most awesome badass woman I've ever met in my life. Like ever seen him out. She is like the epitome of a badass woman, activist, author, and she is just so amazing. You would love her.
We love to see it.
Yeah.
Also, just so you're aware, once you're on Team Tolerator, you can't leave. So if
I didn't plan on leaving.
If you see misogyny, patriarchy, or capitalism play out anywhere else in your life and you want to talk about it, you just have to let me know.
Okay. Well, I will definitely, I'm sure I'll see something. Don't worry.
Right. Yes.
Anything. I live in the current world. So
right. We are living in the hellscape that is 2022.
I almost didn't know the year. I was like 2020. And that was just like, there was a blank space there.
Just so you're aware, someone opened their mouth today in front of the government or as part of the government. It was like only wives should be able to have birth control.
Oh God, I haven't listened to the news since this morning. So I'm sure when I listen to my news podcast later, it'll be on there.
And in case anyone didn't realize, that is also what happens in the very first scene of the Handmaid's Tale Hulu series. Elizabeth Moss tells her husband, "Can you sign the paper so I can get my birth control?"
No. Yeah. No. We don't need to live in that reality. Whoever said that, I would just like to say, fuck off. Yep. And that's all I would like to say for now.
So for anyone who is getting loud about the fact that reproductive rights and women's rights are just like not a priority in this country anymore, keep getting loud, and thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone who is helping the pro-choice movement, because honestly, my body, my choice. I don't need an old elderly white man telling me what to do with my vagina
at all. Not today, not ever.
I don't care what his penis is doing. I don't want to see it. I don't need to know. I don't need to know. Like, just keep it to yourself.
Just keep it over there.
Please. Under as many layers as possible, because I'm sure it's wrinkly as all hell. I don't need to see it.
Tolerators, you know how to get a hold of me. It's at Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram. There was a lovely little commercial at the beginning of this episode about the Patreon and all the ways that you can support us with money. But if you would like to support us for free and hope that leads to money, make sure to leave a 5-star review, a comment on anything that I post, and share an episode with a friend. What if you still have a friend who loves Twilight? They need this episode.
They need to have their awakening.
Yeah.
As to why this is such a hot shit mess.
Right. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything that you're tolerating, including a man who keeps telling you that even though he loves you so very, very much, that he is so, so very dangerous for you. But it's so hot.
Sexy.
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 Smiles are for joy.